Mary. I did Dissolve, and I also worked on Spaghetti with Seeds.
My name's Gray. I directed Even Still, Spaghetti with Seeds, and I helped on a couple of the other films here.
My name's Roman. I worked on Spaghetti with Seeds, and I also helped out with Even Still and Adventures of Hare and Bear.
Hi, my name is Paola, and I worked on La Frontera.
My name is Lily, and I worked on Boots.
My name is Brian. I worked on Getting It Done with Albert Dean.
My name is Moki. I created Peel Me Slowly to See.
Awesome, thank you. And then we'll start by, I would love to hear where the idea came for each of your projects. Just what was the inspiration? We'll have everyone take steps this way so we can all.
So since Andy Warhol stole his banana, I thought that it would be fun to steal his banana from him, from the other guy. And yeah, when I was younger, I really did have a mudroom full of bananas. And I was the banana kid for like months. I smelled like bananas everywhere I went. I smelled like rotten bananas. It was so funny. And I hate bananas. So.
The piece I did was part of the 90th anniversary of the Ordine Foundation. And Don, the director, wanted to do something more whimsical and lighthearted. We had a lot of videos that were straight interviews with nonprofits around town of what the Ordine Foundation does, and he wanted something that told some history in a lighter way.
I had a pair of boots for 10 years, and then they wore out because I wore them all the time. And then I had to throw them out, which is really hard for me to do. I like to joke that I'm one more traumatic event away from becoming a hoarder. Yeah, right? Thank you for laughing. Thank you! You get it. That's it. And so I made this film as a way to say goodbye to those boots because they had been part of my life for so long.
La Frontera came about as like a mini story assignment during my freshman year at college, and just throughout my whole college career, I kept coming back to the story, and when it was time to start making a final project, my thesis film, I kept coming back to it, and immigration has always been an important aspect of my life, and it still continues to this day. Especially now with the world that we live in, I feel it's more poignant to tell these stories, to showcase that we aren't so different. And so this was done to honor my family.
I guess I can talk to Spaghetti with Seeds, since I don't have any other main film. But Spaghetti with Seeds is kind of like, we just wanted to work on a film because a lot of us in Studio Y are alum, except me, I'm still a student. But so we just kind of sat down together and just like pitched ideas and came up with this silly idea of a pigeon that walks into a diner, and there's just all these random little characters back there, and he asks for seeds and pisses off the owl.
This is a hard question, and I'm not sure if I remember completely. I wanted to make a film about being trans, and like I was trying to like figure out all these other like elements and other things I can include to kind of create like a through line, and then eventually the story just came out. And it was funny because it was like when I first started thinking of the film, like a year before I started production, you know, things were kind of like, and then when I was working on the film, things with, you know, the world were like, and then the film was finished, and then it got even worse. So now more than ever, I guess.
Thanks. It is a hard question. At the time that I was making Dissolve, I had been thinking a lot about like choices that people make and how it changes them, and like the way that they can be perceived or just in general. And I really wanted to run with that in a story that makes no sense. So.
Yeah, doom scrolling came about because a lot of the work that I was doing just kind of fell into the social media void, and so I started reading Mark Fisher around that time. He's famous for Captain's realism, and so that really informed the whole idea of like creating an entire animation in which the viewer is doing literally what we all do as kind of like a mechanism with scrolling and everything. So I wanted to use that as a medium to just kind of talk about the burnout that I was dealing with around that time. So yeah, since this was made, I quit my job and taking a career break, so I feel a lot better. So mentally, yeah.
The way that the Shepherd's Flock started out was actually a group of wash pins I had done in high school. Obviously, following a shepherd with an actual flock of sheep, as he kind of does his like year-long journey. It kind of didn't go anywhere when I was in college. And then when I was starting the pitching process for my senior film, this was like the only story that I felt compelled to do and really wanted to explore more into. And obviously the story has changed, but I was happy that I got to revisit it after like 4 years of nothing.
Awesome. Yes, it is. This should be an easy question. I want to know what your favorite part of working on a new project is. When you're putting together, bringing to life your animations, what is your favorite part?
Why do I have to start the I think for me, the favorite part honestly was finding the crew. So I did this project at SCAD, and we had like a whole hiring process within all of the seniors. And it was really awesome finding people who were passionate about my project and wanted to help me make it. And their ideas and their like specialities really kind of came through within the film. So it was great putting together a non-dramatic team, having a really easy year, and just having a ton of fun. So that was, I think, the best part.
For me, it's tech and process, but like finding out new ways I can use. I'm a 3D person primarily when it comes to these animations, so whatever is technical, like I try to learn that and try to see how I can apply it to a new animation. So because of all the movies that I've been able to watch here already in my mind, I'm like already starting to make the initial brainstorm for that too. So that's the exciting part, just if it's in my mind, because it's not out in the open and it's not scary, it's just in my mind. So.
Organizing stuff. No, I love how when you're beginning that ideation process, you start with like so many possibilities and so many things, and you get to kind of like lay them all out. It's like, okay, how do these fit together? How are we going to establish this? I really want this. How can I tie it in with 2 other things? And that's just something that I really like doing. It's very satisfying when you get to see the end result.
Yeah, and it kind of a similar thing as to what Mary's saying. The ideation process for this film was really hard because I had a lot of different ideas and like character ideas and like character arcs that I was all trying to like make like a coherent story that meant something. So I had a bunch of sticky notes with like notes and like ideas for shots, and my roommate remembers on a wall of our apartment, I was like putting up all the post-it notes, and I had like threads that were like character arcs and like themes, and eventually made sense. So that's pretty awesome.
I guess for me, it's mostly like the character and story development. I really like making characters and making stories for them, and building the world around them. And I love just the process of coming up with an idea or a general plot and then going like, okay, why are they doing that? And you find a solution. And you're like, okay, but why that? Okay, this thing happens, but why? How is it able to happen? If I can't answer that question, it gets cut. So like, it's kind of my favorite part, is just figuring out how to make everything work and have an explanation, even if that explanation doesn't end up being said in the end and like it's not explicitly told. I like knowing that I have the answer to that, and I think it can make my storytelling a lot richer as well.
At least for me, I'm generally someone who just goes in and just draws the idea, just lay it out there, and then the concepts and development just come after, because I'm a very visual person, and so for me at least, I kind of already had like an established story since I had worked on it as like for writing classes, and so for this film, I just went ahead and visualized it, and then from there I was like, how do I make this better? And so that's kind of how my thing came about.
I really like the feedback periods during production. Boots was not a project that required like feedback sessions, but in other projects that have, I really like showing people who don't work in film and animation my project in its roughest form. So like the sketchy storyboards, there's no sound, it's literally just the bare bones of what the entire thing is gonna build up to be. Because then I know if in that roughest period, if I'm still getting the reactions I want and they're getting the idea, then I know as I start to give it kind of more muscle and more flesh and everything, it's going to work. But if in that bare bones format it's not working, then it doesn't matter how pretty I make it look, it's not gonna work. So.
I like the character design, just pencil on paper part of it. Sashir, you mentioned you like the technical part. I get too far into that and I'm ready to be done.
I really like the experimentation of different pieces. My mentor at MCAD always asks me like, what is at stake in your project? And I like to make myself answer that question all the time. And so in this one, all three forms of animation were forms of animation I'd never done before. The strata cut animation is like very experimental. There's one guy who invented it, who has a YouTube channel from the 90s that he just posts VHS of him explaining how to do it on. So yeah, just like finding new techniques and experimenting, I think is my most favorite part of it, because it means that I'm challenging myself, and that's fun. I like to give myself problems, is the moral of the story.
I'd love to turn it over for any audience questions that we might have today. Nobody? Compliments? Yeah! Okay, so what do you all have next? You working on a new project? So I'd love to hear about that as well.
I'm about to graduate from MCAD, so I'm, yes! Technically I'm not an animator. I'm a web and multimedia environment student with a minor in animation. So my senior thesis project is going to be an interactive algorithm-based film that you'll be able to walk into an installation of through these panels of fabric, and the film will respond to your body language and communicate with you that way. So it's really weird code, and I'm really excited about it, and it's a big problem, so that's fun.
Sounds amazing.
We are planning a second sort of a sequel to the Albert Ordine story, talking more about him and his wife, how they met, how they started being philanthropists. That's down the road. The thing I'm working on currently right now is something for the sewage treatment plant about biogas. So.
I'm working on a new film. I don't have very much about it online right now because it's still in those early stages, but I do have an ongoing kind of community-based project back in Minneapolis called Grotesque Fest, where a film festival that runs out of Bryant Lake Bowl. We have a performance, we have experimental art, we have experimental films, horror films, gore films, weird films. It's a very fun time. Happens every 6 months. So if you're looking for something to do in the cities around February or August, generally is when we happen. So.
I just recently graduated from MCAT as well, so right now I'm just looking for work as an animator, so it's pretty much my whole deal. I do have an idea for a new film, but talking about the burnout that I've been experiencing post MCAT, so maybe I'll do it, who knows?
I'm currently finishing my second semester junior year at MCAD, so I'm doing pre-production work for my senior thesis film right now, because I'm me and I like to make things really long, so I was like, I'm gonna need a whole extra semester for this thing if I'm gonna get it done. So I'm working on that, and then I know us folks at Studio Walleye are starting pre-production on something else.
Yeah, so this was my thesis film. I just graduated from MCAD, a theme maybe. And so after graduating, I co-founded a indie animator collective called Studio Walleye. We're working on some projects for that, and I'm trying to find something that I want to make a film about, and I'm not there yet, but I will.
guys, you're not gonna believe this. This was my thesis film. I just graduated like a hot second ago. I don't even remember when at this point. I'm also looking for stuff on a professional level, but in the meantime, I'm thinking of branching out into the horror genre. It would be fun.
Yeah, I'm really also, I didn't graduate like these guys did a long time ago. But I graduated years ago. But my aim right now is I'm still taking it easy. I'm really enjoying just like taking this career break. I want to shout out to my parents and my dad's right there to say hi and Ted. Who's helping me like finance some of these things. So during this time, I'm just like starting to slow down a little bit and really appreciate all the things and unlearning a lot of the social media stuff that the stressors that I talked about in my work. So I can try to be a lot more slower, and for the next project, whatever it is, I know that whatever it is, thanks to this event that you guys set up, it's been very inspiring. So don't know what it is, but there are definitely things in my head right now. So thank you guys.
Nice. Yeah, I also graduated recently, last June, but at Savannah College of Art Design. Also working with Studio Walleye, and kind of working freelance. I do have a next project planned. I have it scripted, but it is a comedy this time, so not a drama. Basically, it follows two nuns as they have their final like rite of passage in protecting a cathedral, and everything goes wrong in very crazy ways. So I'm very excited to start production on that, but that will be a long project. So, yeah.
Well, it's really awesome to. Oh, we have a question right here.
Do we have time for a question?
Yes, we do.
Could you talk about the process, everybody, curious about your process for collaborating on the score and the sounds, whether that's something that you created or whether you worked with other people on that?
Yeah, so working or going to SCAD, we have a sound program. So we actually work with other students. At least for like the sound bits, the music bit, we did outsource. My producer is part of a tribe in Oklahoma, and they had a program kind of set up with our composer where he could use like the tribe's instruments and kind of support that community. And so that was a great resource for us. And yeah, it was a really fun process for the sound people. We could actually have in-person meetings, go do the sound mixers and stuff like that. With the composer, obviously everything was just like an email send, like how does this sound? But it was a really great experience because I don't deal with sound at all. I might do sound for our animatic, but not in a professional sense. And I will say it was fun in the Shepherd's Flock because our music, our composer had made a theme for the lamb and a theme for the dragon, and he actually mixed those two together to get the theme for Amar the shepherd. So a little fun fact, but yeah.
So I think with that question, I want to shout out to the band that let me use their music. They're Rangkaptui. They're from Vietnam, and Vietnam right now has a very experimental music scene happening that they're basically part of. I heard them at a random show, like just in the background of playlist, and I was like, what is this beautiful song? And then, I found it, I was like, okay, let me listen to it. And since then, I've just been really obsessed with their music. And they make fun of me saying like, I'm probably like their biggest fan, number one. And so that collaboration is, when I talked to them once, it's like they're really happy that they can get their music out. And so they were like, it's like, please use it for anything, and we appreciate it. And I'm like, well, in that case, I want to try to make sure everyone in America knows who you guys are. But yeah, Rangkaptui, and they're basically the source of inspiration because every time I listen to that music, I'm just obsessed. So it's the thing that creates the most visuals in my head, which is why I was able to create those like mini shorts within the short. Besides that, I've been really obsessed with shortwave radio, and there's this thing called WebSDR, which is a shortwave radio that's streaming online, and you can record whatever you want from there. And I found things like super fundamentalist, like people like preaching to number stations to like just weird stations, pirate radio, etc. So you can find all of that. You just have to you have to go out of your way to figure out where everything is. It's really hard, but the challenge is worth it. And besides that, I'm trying to learn music now because right now I can't afford a musician. So I'm learning music, and so far that I'm just learning basic DAW and like basic just composition, so I can create something out of it. But the idea usually is it's like when I hear something, the imagery is provided, and it has never really been the other way around. So oftentimes if I use a musician sing, or if I use a sample, I then make the work based on that. It inform it. That's how powerful it is for me to sound and music.
Fiverr. No, I met my composer on Fiverr. She's from Greece. She was super cool. And this is just a piece of advice. Maybe make sure that they're in a similar time zone to you if you're going to work with them. Because man, that collaboration was very fun. But interesting.
Yeah, so I helped a friend with their senior project when they were graduating about a year before me, I think. And so I was talking to them about it because I think that sound is like one of the most important aspects of any kind of film. And they told me to work with their composer. Her name is Jessie, or Malbat online. Go find her. She's one of my favorite animators everywhere. She's on Instagram or YouTube. And so I got to work with her, which was super great. And yeah, it was just kind of like a back and forth, like here's the animatic, here's some things. I don't really know anything about music though yet. And then she would send me something and I would say like, this is great, maybe tweak this. And I was really proud of what we came up with together.
I always outsource this kind of stuff because working with sound and music is the bane of my existence. It confuses me and I don't know how it works. But I'm also extremely inspired by music tracks a lot, so it ends up, I need it, but I never know how to make it, so I usually try to just find someone who can do what I want to do.
At least for me, I'm a very picky person when it comes to like my art and stuff, and so when it came to this film, I knew exactly what kind of music I wanted. However, because it's something very regional, I knew I wasn't going to be able to find a composer for it, and so I just went online, searched up free corrido beats on YouTube, and just found the one that I liked the most. Because I'm also someone who likes to be very hands-on with various different mediums as well, so I even taught myself how to use Audition to mix both like the Foley sound, the music and stuff like that. And so I had the music already done since like the beginning of the conception for this film. However, I did not make the sound effects until like a week before the film was due, but I think it turned out great. So at least for me, I like to be very hands-on with every aspect, but if I can't, then I'll find someone to do it.
I think it depends on the project for me. My senior project, which was also at MCAD, longer ago though, and Boots, both of them I did the sound myself, but both were very different situational needs. For example, one project needed more like Foley, environmental sounds, so it was a lot of looking up like free river sounds, free bird sounds, things like that, and finding a way to composite it all together so it sounded good. Whereas this one, the sound came first, and then the animation came second. Usually it's the other way around for me, because I wanted it to sound like a voicemail. So I went through the practice and audition of like figuring out which effects got it to sound like a voicemail, and then I was like, well, I can't just have the voiceover, I need something in the background. And something I figured out in one of my film classes that you can do an audition, that's a really quick way to add like background music, is you can tweak your voiceover to the point where the words are inaudible and it just sounds like music, but you can't tweak it too far because then it sounds like a robot. But if you still scrub through the audio, it just sounds like the voiceover still, but there's so many layers of effects. And I can never do it the same way twice. I have to do it differently every time I do it because each voiceover is different. But then when you get it to that sweet spot, it's a really nice way. Then you can like slow it down and it doesn't sound too robotic, and then it kind of mirrors everything you're already saying, and you have a really quick, really easy way to do background sound and fill everything out. But my next project that's a little bigger and a little more like folly intensive, I am going to be working with a sound designer that I've met through other film festivals, and we run into each other, we email each other. Mike Hollenbach, he does a lot of sound for people in the Twin Cities who do animation. So that's where I'm going next.
The piece we did, we hired a professional voiceover talent for the woman's speaking the main part. The historian Tony Dearkins, I pulled his audio from the interviews we did, all the live interviews with different nonprofits around town. And I've got a bunch of resources I use for client work for music cues and sound effects. So that came from a number of sources. And then the guitar and harmonica at the end, I played at the last minute because we kind of added that at the very end. Also want to shout out for Mike Hallenbach. I've worked with him on a couple of projects. And when you can work with an actual sound designer, it's so much better. So Mike Hallenbach, Steve Horner is another one in the area.
Kind of depends on the project for me. For this one, the Banana film, I actually for a while was in a punk band. I'm a bassist, and so part of the interlude portion of that film is just one of our jam sessions that we were just kind of fucking around with some melodies on, and then I scored the other 3 parts on my bass, writing melodic bass lines and kind of just recording them and having fun in audition. But I really love to work with sound designers and musicians, and my wonderful, beautiful partner is a incredibly talented musician, and he's helping me on my senior thesis, which I'm really excited about, because it's just fun to collaborate, you know, and like learn how to speak somebody else's language creatively and learn what gives them joy and what aspects of that are their favorites. And I think that's the beauty of collaborating with sound. Cool.
Before we end, I do want to say last night we announced the winner for our best narrative short film, and that went to Paolo. I'm glad you submitted to us. You shared last night how you reached out to us after our deadline. We gave you a waiver so that you could submit. I'm so grateful that you did. I'm so grateful that you all were able to be here this year. Clearly, MCAD has a great animation program. It's putting out great work. I also graduated from MCAD. Well, a while ago, filmmaking. So it's just a program I believe in. I'm glad you were all able to be here, we were able to showcase your work, and that we'll be able to continue doing that in the future with your next projects. All right. Thank you, everybody.